It's September the 13th, and this is our Breeders' Cup video newsletter coming to you from beautiful Gulfstream Park. This will be the last video newsletter where we'll take a look at the progress of the contenders, as the next time I talk to you in mid-October, we'll have a pretty good handle on who the contenders are and who my initial picks will be. And then the day before the races, I'll give you my actual selections and how I'm going to bet the races. So let's take a look at what's happened in the last month. In the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Sprint, there were a winner of the Grade 1 Hopeful. Currency Swap could be going here, although he could also go in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile around 2 turns. And the winner of the Grade 2 Sanford on opening day at Saratoga, Overdriven, still hasn't been back to the races, so I personally think there's a chance that he could be in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Sprint instead of in the Juvenile. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies in the Grade 1 Del Mar Debutante on September the 3rd. Wee Miss Frankie was a definitive winner, and I've read that she may go in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf, but if she goes in a Juvenile Fillies on the main track, she would be a force. On September 4th, the closing day feature at Saratoga on that day was the Grade 1 Spinaway, and Grace Hall was a solid winner that day. I think she's got a solid chance as well. Although I think the horse that we really need to keep our eye on will be running on October the 8th in the Grade 1 Frizette. That's a 1-turn mile at Belmont Park. That horse is a Todd Pletcher, Michael Rapoli owned filly called Stop Shopping Maria. She was just dynamite in breaking her maiden, and they skipped the Hopeful and the Spinaway Stakes at Saratoga to run in the Frizette to give her a bigger distance of ground, because they are pointing her for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile around 2 turns. In the Breeders' Cup Filling Mare Sprint, the only race that was of any notice was the Grade 1 Ballerina on August the 27th, and Hilda's Passion, off of a poor effort in Midsummer, came back with a dominating win and looked like she might be a force, although I would have bet against her in the Filling Mare Sprint. However, after the race she was diagnosed with an injury and she's out for the Breeders' Cup. So I don't have any rankings for the Juvenile Sprint or the Juvenile Fillies, but at this point in time in the Filling Mare Sprint, which is a Friday afternoon race, my top pick is number 1, Turbulent Descent. My second choice is Sassy's Image, who loves the Churchill surface. And my third pick is Switch, if her connections will ever put her in a 1-turn race. The Breeders' Cup Filling Mare Turf on August the 21st, Winter Memories was a short odds-on favorite to win the Grade 2 Lake Placid, and she just had a terrible trip. I personally thought it was the jockey's fault, and he has since been removed. We'll put a new jockey on board when she runs back in mid-October. I think she's a top contender there. The winner that day, Hungry Island, her connections think she's got a lot of talent, and they're going to run her back and then point her for the Filling Mare Turf. Right now I would say that my top selections in the Filling Mare Turf are 1, Winter Memories, and I would put 1A, Stasalita, the winner of the Grade 1 Beverly D. She was very impressive that day in Chicago. And then I still think Harmonious is my 3rd ranked filly. I still think she's sitting on a big race, although she didn't show it in her last at California. The feature race on Friday, which will go off at about a 7:30 post time under the lights, is the Ladies Classic. On August the 20th, the Grade 1 Alabama was won by Royal Delta, who I'd been waiting for her to come back. She paid $13. I collected over $60.
In the Alabama, on the outside it's tricky, and Plum Pretty digs down. They're going at each other with Royal Delta coming to them. Less than a furlong to go, and Royal Delta takes the lead and pulls away, and Royal Delta goes on to win the Alabama, convincingly beating its...
And then on September the 3rd, the Grade 2 Molly Pitcher, Quiet Giant, dominated that race, and she moves into my contention as the 5th or 6th filly on my list. Right now I like number 1, Blind Luck. I think she was flattered when Havre de Grace came back to beat the boys in the Woodward Stakes, and my number 2 filly is Royal Delta. So let's turn our attention now to the Saturday championship races. We turn our attention now to Saturday's races. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile, again, in the Grade 1 Hopeful Currency Swap, and from the Grade 2 Sanford Overdriven. Those two would be my top choices. I like Overdriven the best, should he show up there. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. There aren't many 2-year-olds that have gone a distance of ground on the grass yet, but Finale, who won the Continental Mile at Monmouth, was ultra impressive, and he'd be my top selection if I had to make a bet today. In the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, the Grade 1 King's Bishop at Saratoga was run at 7 furlongs, and I was very impressed with Uncle Mo's comeback race. He was run down in a photo finish by Caleb's Posse, and I think either one of those would be a solid selection in the Dirt Mile.
Revving up on the outside. Flashpoint is digging down toward the rail. Then Poseidon's Warrior. Dominus is in behind Uncle Mo, who's shifting in. Then Justin Phillip, and here comes Caleb's Posse. Uncle Mo's in front. Justin Phillip, Caleb Posse. Can Uncle Mo hold off Caleb's Posse? It's going to be a photo finish in the King's Bishop, that is.
I also think that from the Grade 2 Forgo, Jackson Ben, that's his second Grade 1 win at Saratoga, won 7 furlongs, and he's proven at 2 turns, so I think he'd be a good contender at the Dirt Mile as well. I also think that Twirling Candy from California, if he chooses to go in the Dirt Mile instead of going in the Classic, I think he would be a solid selection. So right now my top 3 in the Dirt Mile are Twirling Candy, Uncle Mo, and Caleb's Posse. In the Breeders' Cup Sprint, Big Drama made his return to the races, having been off since January to September, and he won the overnight Whippleton Stakes at Calder, much the best. I also think you got to look at Uncle Mo, Caleb's Posse, and Jackson Ben. And then out of the Grade 1 Pat O'Brien out of Del Mar, the Factor looked really good, beating Smiling Tiger. I still think Smiling Tiger is the horse to beat, especially if this is his last race before the Breeders' Cup Sprint. As I mentioned before, he runs really well off of a long layoff, so he would look sharp. So my top contenders in the sprint would be number 1, Big Drama, number 2, Smiling Tiger. Unless Smiling Tiger doesn't have another race until the Breeders' Cup Sprint, then he'll be my top choice. Trap Shot, who I'm waiting for him to come back in mid-October, and the Factor. The last 2 races on Championship Saturday are the Breeders' Cup Turf and the Breeders' Cup Classic. On the Turf, the only race that affected this division was the Grade 2 Del Mar Derby, where Band overcame a lot of difficult circumstances. He's had a lot of travel, a lot of tough races, and he still, in spite of a wide trip, was up to win the Del Mar Derby. Cape Blanco, he's the best European right now. He won the Arlington Million. However, I'm worried that he's coming back to the United States again for the October 1st Joe First Turf Classic in a mile and a half. And then if he ships back to Europe and then comes back again for the Breeders' Cup, I don't know, 4 trips across the Atlantic in just a little over 2 months, that's a lot of travel. I'd be tempted to play against him with another European. So that's my number 2 ranking, is any other European. Then number 3, Band, and number 4, Air Support. And finally, the big race on the day, the Breeders' Cup Classic. The Grade 1 Pacific Classic, going 10 furlongs, Twirling Candy again had the perfect trip. He was chasing down loose on the lead frontrunner Acclamation, who's a turf horse. Granted, a Grade 1, multiple Grade 1 winning turf horse, but still Twirling Candy could not run him down. So I just don't know what to make of Twirling Candy at this point. Is it the fact that he's just had bad luck, 3 photo finishes, or can he just not get the distance? I certainly think that Acclamation is not a dirt horse. He probably benefited with the Pacific Classic being on the synthetics at Del Mar. I think another factor you've got to look at as to the way my rankings are going to look for the Breeders' Cup Classic is in the Grade 1 Woodward Stakes, Havre de Grace beat Boys. Now you might say that makes Havre de Grace a prime contender for the Classic. Her connections want to make her a Horse of the Year candidate. However, I think the fact that Havre de Grace won that race is more of an indictment on the rest of the field, because Havre de Grace hasn't been able to beat Blind Luck. So Havre de Grace is the second best fillier mare in the country, and she beat all the boys. Then in the Grade 1 Super Derby, Bob Baffert has taken the winner of that race, Prayer for Relief, a 3-year-old whose buyer was only a 98, is pointing him for the Classic. So Acclamation, a turf horse, Havre de Grace, the second best filly, and Prayer for Relief, a 3-year-old that can't even crack a triple buyer, are the prime contenders for the Classic. I'm looking at a real big price and a real big upset. So right now, I'd say the only horse that's in form that has shown the ability to get the distance is Tisdway. He's my number 1. And number 2, I'll be really looking hard for a long shot. We'll come back in mid-October, take a look at where we are as we're just a little over 7 weeks away now, and we'll be less than a month at that point in time.